Welcome to today's edition of Daytime Dialogues. It is my great honor to introduce a person who truly is having a major influence in the world. Imam Abdullah Antepli is a person who is globally acknowledged as a scholar and leader of cross-religious and cross-cultural dialogue in American higher education. He's a professor at Duke University. He's built organizations and initiatives. He's a fellow on Jewish-Muslim relations at the Shalom Hartman Institute in Israel. He is also a person, and with this I really want to start with him, who just last week was named to the top 100 people positively influencing Jewish life in the year 2022 by the Allgemeiner Journal, which to me is fascinating on two levels. One is that a famous Yiddish paper that is published in English is recognizing an imam as one of the top 100 people, and also because if you look at the list online, just fortunately, alphabetically, he's the number one on the list. So when I opened up the list and I said, wow, there's our guest for this week. Imam, thank you so much for joining us. And tell me why you think they feel that you've had this level of influence.
Well, good afternoon. Salaam alaikum. Shalom, Rabbi Matanki. I am so delighted and really feel privileged to be part of your podcast. And I hope I will be part of your shul and community in person soon in warmer days in Chicago. There are two really honest answers, and both of them are true but contradictory to that question. So the positive answer is why I made it up to the top 100 person is because I dedicated my entire life to recover from my own anti-Semitism. I always consider and label myself as a recovering anti-Semite. I grew up in a very, very anti-Semitic environment. And for a number of years, regretfully, despicably, shamefully, I ask forgiveness for every single day. I try to take that poison out of my system as much as possible. And it sort of made me for a number of years that Judaism as religion and Jews as people are irredeemably evil, and they are behind all the problems in the world. And not only Baruch Hashem, Baruch Allah, I tried to recover. I took the nearest exit and have been driving in the opposite direction for many years now. But I took my recovery into an ethical, moral journey to make sure others in my community who are victims of anti-Semitism will be recovering as well, or they will not be the victim of anti-Semitism like I do. So one answer is that personal recovery journey unfolded through God's grace in so many good work, so many partnerships, so many initiatives and educational programs that Allgemeiner very kindly recognized that work, which is difficult work. You do it at the cost of so many things, including your own credibility in your own community. So this is one answer. I think on behalf of the so many noble people like Yossi Klein Halevi, all participants to my programs in combating anti-Semitism, this is good recognition of this difficult work, noble work that we are doing. But I think the little bit cynical and maybe negative answer is, I think improving Jewish-Muslim relations, having honest conversations about issues that divides us and polarizes us, the bar is so low that even someone like Abdullah with very modest contributions can make it to the top 100 list. And depending on the day or the situation, these two can be true at the same time.
So I don't believe the second, but I do appreciate the first, and I really want to look into that and try to understand it a little bit more. What was the cause when you were growing up, when you look back, for that anti-Semitism? Was it Israel? Was it Judaism? Was it something else?
It's much deeper. I think many of us, understandably, because hate is ugly, evil, immoral, terrible, we fail to see and recognize its seductive power. It helps people. It connects you to parts of your system that you are not able to connect otherwise. It gives you very convincing, comforting answers. I don't want to say many people do not appreciate hate. There is nothing to be appreciated about hate, but hate is not useless. Hate and racism of any kind, it turns these complicated issues of individual problems or collective problems, societal problems, economic and political problems, and it gives you a very convincing black and white reductionist answers. So my journey is, like many people in the Muslim majority world, you wake up and open your eyes to the world, and you see that anything Islamic, anything Muslim is failing. Muslim societies are perpetually losing. Our flag's never on the top. We are always representing the bottom 10% of every measure of development. Wars, conflicts, deeply broken societies, tyrannies, etc. So every Muslim, I think, especially if you grew up in the Middle East, if you are Turkish, you feel you are an extension of a great civilization, Ottoman Empire. You wake up your eyes every morning to a life of misery, and you ask, why? What went wrong? After many years of very successful golden ages of Islam and Muslim civilizations, why are we failing? And I was exposed early on, early teenage years, that why are we failing, or why are we constantly humiliated in a state of misery and perpetual losing, is because of this evil, cancerous religion and its minority people who infiltrate into the brain tissues of the society behind the media, banks, and all powers, centers of power around the world, and they are enemy of Islam, and they are there to humiliate us. I have to emphasize, though, my anti-Semitism, there is a religious Islamic Muslim scripturally based anti-Semitism, but mine was very secular. My parents were not religious at all. My environment was very, very French style. They even were hostile to religion. They were a-religious people, but they were very nationalistic. They were chauvinistically nationalistic. And in that Turkish nationalism, like any form of extreme nationalism, anti-Semitism had much easier time to spread. The first book I remember I read about Jews and Judaism was the children's version of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion at the age of 12 and 13. Children's version, which is with updated multimedia and pictures from Israeli-Palestinian conflict in 1980s in Turkey. Second book was notorious, despicable American anti-Semite, Henry Ford's infamous and toxic International Jew, which gives a very modern spin to the Protocols. And then, of course, before the age of 15, I read Mein Kampf 3-4 times, and I was convinced that Hitler was right. He saw something in these people, and I hope somebody will finish the job. And when I say these, I feel sort of shaken even. My ethical moral world is pained by saying this, but that was my state. What saved me, counterintuitively to many people, is becoming religious, becoming Muslim, taking my religion a lot more seriously, being exposed to Islam, learning Arabic and Persian, and studying Islam in its own mainstream theology. It significantly slowed me down and eventually enabled and inspired me to take the nearest exit and drive in the opposite direction. But answering your question a little bit directly, yes, of course, significant part of exasperating, exaggerating catalyst was Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Everything was seen through the lenses of Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the way in which I was exposed to Palestinian suffering, occupation, human rights violations that Palestinians are going through, but in such a distorted, twisted, and really deceptive ways.
It's interesting because I've had the opportunity to meet sheikhs who are also very much involved in trying to bring about peace between Jews and Muslims. Sheikh Amer, Sheikh Faluji from Kfar Qasim, I don't know if you're familiar with them. Palestinians who are trying to do this, and very often I hear that they also refer to the religion as having been the source of trying to find peace. And then we hear the opposite, that that there are segments of the Muslim population of the world who use religion as the sword versus using it as the source of peace. Where does it, how do you find that division within Islam to such an extent?
Right. I think significant part of the problem between Jewish and Muslim communities is we don't consume a similar information. We don't have a joint media. What appears on Jewish Mirror and what appears on Muslim Mirror or screen on any given same exact event is almost contradictorily different. So what you hear, and eventually because of that, consequently, your source of information make you feel that as if it's the Quran, it's the religion, it's the theology that's giving rise to Muslim anti-Semitism, which is absolutely not true at all. Not that people are not irrational, but based on what they hear and what they see. But Muslim anti-Semitism, even now, thankfully, Baruch Hashem, it is never as bad or as religiously rooted, biblically or scripturally rooted as Christian anti-Semitism. Christian anti-Semitism, therefore, has been a lot more difficult. Why? Because the anti-Semitic scriptural and traditional elements in Christianity, it moved to the heart of Christianity. It became the symbol of Christianity. If you go to Holocaust Museum in DC or Yad Vashem in Jerusalem, when they take you to historical journey of how anti-Semitism was perceived and created throughout the history, they start with Jesus on the cross. I don't want to be misunderstood. I'm not saying all Christians are anti-Semite or entire Christian theology or Bible is anti-Semitic. But if you can't connect between Jesus on the cross and the Holocaust, that means you are missing the whole point. The anti-Semitic elements that Jesus' crucifixion and the alleged role of the Jews in that event has, over the centuries, moved to the heart and soul of Christianity and pumped anti-Semitism for a very long time. So we do have scriptures in the Quran and in the sayings of Prophet Muhammad anti-Semitic, but thankfully, for all sorts of coincidental reasons, ethical, moral reasons, they never moved to the heart of Islam. They never moved to the center of Islam until 1948. Pre-1948, Muslim anti-Semitism is always very episodic, always based on an individual ruler or a king or a sultan. And therefore, if you compare the Jewish experience under Muslim rule, even though it wasn't egalitarian and equal, but if you compare it with the Jewish experience until Holocaust in Europe, it's not even comparable. So Muslims were not innately, inherently more peaceful people, or Christians of Europe were not innately, inherently more violent people. It was Islam's ability to keep religious roots of Muslim anti-Semitism at the margins, at the periphery. But after 1948, of course, when you are in conflict, you go back and rewrite your history as a rabbi, as an imam. How many times you appear before two bitterly divorcing couples? They built a life, they raised children for 20 years, 30 years. And when they are bitterly fighting, they remember differently. They rewrite their history. And therefore, regretfully, allow me to give one example from what I'm saying. The Muslim anti-Semitism that has been, historically speaking, in the margins, religious Muslim anti-Semitism, is moving to the center. One of the most despicable, reprehensible, disgusting version of religious Muslim Islamic anti-Semitism is the Hamas charter, this evil terrorist organization's charter, which proudly I am on their hit list. Now, you know, if you are measured by who hates you, I am glad at least I am scoring that these evil, despicable people doing despicable things in the name of Islam hates me. But if you take the Hamas charter, it's a prime example or a sample of what would Islamic religious Muslim anti-Semitic literature would look like. If you would have taken Hamas charter to a Muslim in 1920s, you don't have to go too far. When they see the way they are using those Quranic verses, they are using those hadiths, they are making the interpretive attempt, most Muslims would have laughed at them. It wouldn't have carried any weight. It would have no currency. But it carries now because of what happened since 1948 and the whole conflict and the shattering of the Palestinian society.
Well, is the Abraham Accords redirecting, changing that piece of the anti-Semitic source?
That's a good
moving the narrative
good,
away?
Yes, I just came back from Saudi Arabia, which has not even joined the Abraham Accord, but of course, without Saudi support and blessing, none of this could have happened. And I had a chance, since Abraham Accord, I was one of the initial skeptics of this Abraham Accord from the very beginning, but I made public apologies to people, the main architects behind the Abraham Accord, because I was one of those thinking this is nothing but what Israel has signed with Egypt, Jordan, or Turkey before. It's geopolitical, it's between governments. It will never filter down to the society, to people diplomacy and engagement. I am so glad I am proven wrong. Abraham Accord, though modest, but it's unfolding in the right direction for a very long time, that making this Muslim anti-Semitism, at least it's almost impossible not to see its naked ugliness by these countries now as a result of this rapprochement and diplomatic relationship between Israel. I am really hopeful. I would have never imagined that I will hear and see in these Moroccan societies, Moroccan imams, Saudi imams, Emirati imams, seeing the damage that Muslim anti-Semitism is doing to Islam primarily, before it becomes a problem to Jews and others. That it is because, like in every religion, in every ethical moral philosophy at the heart, hate primarily starts poisoning the bearer. Its immediate danger and destruction is to its own societies. If any collective, if any society allows any form of hate go unchallenged for a very long time, that amount of hate erodes them from within. So many people now in those societies who signed Abraham Accord is seeing this, its immorality, its ugliness, and its damage and destruction to Muslim thinking, Islamic imagination. It's a desecration of our own sacred tradition, and fighting against which I would have never imagined it will happen in my lifetime. So I'm grateful.
So you see now improvements because of Abraham
Yes.
Accords.
Yes, yes.
And what would be, if you were able to have a wish for the next step, what would be that wish to bring it one step further in the process?
I think American Jews and American Muslims, we have an incredible moral imperative. We have an unescapable moral responsibility to model and exemplify what would healthier, more nuanced, honest Jewish-Muslim relations and Jewish-Muslim conversations would look like. Because in many parts of the world, especially in the Middle East, Jews and Muslims, they are either in active war, like in Israel-Palestine, or like France and England, there is an amount of hostility and conflict and tension.
Imam, I think
Hello? Did I lose you? Rabbi Matanki, I think you are frozen.
Imam, you're here
Yes.
again. Okay, I lost you for a moment. Hopefully this will continue. And just to continue where we had left off, and hopefully
Right.
we'll be able to work this well.
Well, after 3 years of Zooming, you would think we figured this
the
out.
next
But
wish.
yes, I was saying In the United States, there are possibilities and opportunities for American Jews and American Muslims. Despite all the issues and the problems that we have, we are in a better position than the Jews and the Muslims of the Middle East, Jews and the Muslims of Europe, to model and exemplify what would an honest, healthy, sophisticated partnership and relationships between Jews and Muslims are possible. We have to model and exemplify to these Abraham Accord countries and others. I think my biggest wish, I cannot change much what's going on around the world, but here in the United States, as a proud member of American Muslim communities, as a proud member of American Islam, my pride is in both American and being Muslim. As someone who loves my religion, I think my biggest wish and work is in North America. We have to work really hard, and you have to work really hard in Chicago to find who your Muslim neighbors are, who are the people who are willing to have an honest and transparent conversation with you, and model and exemplify. Because a lot of disbelief as a result of this 100 years of conflict and push people to a level of despair. We have to show them. We have to show and destroy their despair and hopelessness, not through ideas, not through preaching, but through the realities on the ground that we are not destined to be enemies. We are not destined to hate each other. There are ethical, moral values that we share, despite our maybe contradictory political loyalties, political interpretations of Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We can still sit down and have an honest conversation.
So from that perspective, can I, as a proud Zionist, on the outside of my synagogue, there's our Israeli flag banners which say, "We stand with Israel." How would I enter into a conversation with a Muslim brother saying, I'm not going to give up on my Zionist dream.
Right.
We have to figure out a way to make this work. Well,
Yeah.
how does it happen?
If you would have asked me this question maybe 10 years ago, it was more difficult to answer because it was all ideas and conceptual aspirations. But look at my work in MLI. I established a partnership and leadership program in Israel at a Zionist American institution taught by Zionist organizations. And it's not a dialogue program. It's not like toothless, fluffy, mushy, kumbaya singing interfaith. Jews have halakha, we have Sharia, kosher chicken, halal chicken. It's not one of those interfaithy, lovey-dovey, let's hold hands and get along. More than 150 North American Muslim individuals, many of them are rising leaders in their community. They went to Israel to learn about Jews, Judaism, Zionism, and Israel in a one-way learning program. Try to see the world through Jewish eyes and Zionism, with no obligation to agree and even like what they hear. But look, there is a reality on the ground, which I hope will humble anybody's doubt or cynicism. Can we turn this into a reciprocal process? Is there a way in which, without losing any ounce of your pride from your Zionism, without losing any element of your admirable solidarity to this Jewish Zionist dream, this Jewish homecoming story, which I grew to learn and appreciate and love at the same time, is there a way in which enough number of ethical, moral, Zionist, God-loving, God-fearing, merciful Jews like yourself can make a similar reciprocal attempt to see the world through a Muslim eyes?
So where would we go? You went to Israel, but I'm not, if I went to Ramallah, it would be much more complicated.
Well, Abraham Accord presents an incredible opportunities. Well, first of all, Chicago has about 700,000 Muslims. I don't know where your shul is exactly, this Divan area.
We are right there in that Divan area.
So you don't even have to, people, Muslims are in spitting distance. I mean, don't spit anyone, but what's the nicer version of that word? They are in arm distance from you. That first, I highly encourage you to start within your own neighborhood, reach out to your Muslim neighbors. And I am happy to report the reason I was in UAE, Saudi Arabia, and in less than 2 weeks, I will be in Morocco. We are hoping and dreaming that one of the many good outcomes of Abraham Accord will be that Morocco, Bahrain, UAE, and maybe inshallah in the future, Be'ezrat Allah, Saudi Arabia, will be such Muslim majority home country for any Jewish individual who would like to make a similar journey into the world of Islam and Muslim cultures. They will be welcome in these Muslim institutions and provide sophisticated educations. But it's possible that you can start some of it in Chicago.
Well, we'll be in touch, hopefully, about trying to find ways to do that as well, because we are one world and we are one community and one society. And the real challenge, which I guess both of our communities have, is a lack of understanding and appreciation of the other. It's on a person-to-person piece.
I cannot agree more. It wasn't easy, this 150 plus people to participate in this program, Muslim Leadership Initiative. I hope audience will Google and look at it. They took a tremendous amount of risk and they have faced tremendous amount of attack. But one of my most convincing recruitment line to these Muslim communities was, you care about Palestine, you care about Palestinian people, you care about what's going on in the Middle East, you care about Israeli-Palestinian conflict. How many Jews you know? How many Shabbat dinners you have been part of? How many Jewish homes you have visited? Like, if you care about this issue so much, would you not, at least as to keep your intellectual honesty, with no obligation to agree, you would diversify and try to understand the other side, whoever the other side is. And my ethical, moral sort of charge and challenge to my Jewish brothers and sisters is the same. I admire your Zionism, your loyalty, your love to the Middle East. But because of that love, you don't try to understand the complexities of all sides. And part of that love doesn't energize and inspires you to, you are trying to set up a shop in the heart of Islam. And would you not know something about this religion, this people, and recruit some friends, etc.? To me, it's unthinkable. But unless you brought to people's attention, sometimes I've seen many Muslims, they care a lot, but they have never had that one honest conversation with a one honest and loyal, proud Zionist Jew. That challenge is there for my Jewish brothers and sisters as well.
No, I understand that. I actually appreciate it. In addition, if people were to Google the Imam, you would notice that he has wonderful videos of conversations with Yossi Klein Levi, who has been a guest on this, with Yehuda Kurtzer, with so many others, in trying to open up this dialogue. And sometimes dialogue is frightening because you learn things you may not want to hear.
Exactly.
But when it's with people such as yourself, Imam, it is enlightening. And believe it or not, our time is up. I want to thank you. I also want to thank Stephanie Engelson for having made this possible. She was the shadchanit, the person who connected the two of us. If you look online, by the way, at www.hartman.org.il/program/Muslim-leadership-initiative, you'll see what the Imam was talking about in that program. It's an important program. And I look forward to continuing conversations. And the invitation is to you, when you come the next time to the Devon area, to come to our synagogue and to have this conversation.
I would be honored to join you and daven with you and invite you to my community. When things get so cold and depressing in Chicago, you now have a brother in the warm South in North Carolina. Come and visit us. Allow me to end with this.
Very much.
Anybody who's listening to this, we have despite all the problems between Jews and Muslims, we still have most things that we need to bring peace between the house of Ishmael and house of Isaac. What we are lacking is courageous prophetic leadership among ourselves and the increasing level of apathy and despair and hopelessness. We have to produce this prophetic leadership, and we have to fight against despair and hopelessness, which is the greatest sin in both Judaism and Islam, and try our best to trigger the divine help as much as possible. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. And on that note, I wish you a wonderful day and continued success in all of your endeavors.
Thank you, and yours as well.
Bye-bye.